Thanks, David. So I think rather than just start off with the Q&A, I think what I'd like to do, so the purpose of this is we're talking about local lead to conversion, which is a broad topic. But I think what would be great is if we could just go down the line, tell everyone a little bit about yourself and explain to folks how it is that you got here, and not here to the conference, but how it is you arrived at the company that you're at and what your background is and things like that.
I'll go first. Jon Zack, founder of FunnelKake. Ninth startup. My first company was in '89. I was one of the first e-commerce guys working with CompuServe, Prodigy, a little company called AOL. You might have heard of them. In '94, started one of the first web agencies.
Were you in charge of mailing out all those discs?
No, I was the guy that said, "You got mail." You know, that was my voice. It's a little deeper now as I get older. But '94, I started one of the first web agencies. Sold that in 2006. We had about 800 clients. We did e-business, e-commerce, all that stuff. And then more recently, about 10 years ago, we started a company called Zack. Got about 12,000 people on our marketing automation platform. And then how we got to FunnelKake and I guess here, other than the plane I took over, customers started saying, you know, we really need to see value in our marketing and we want attribution. And more importantly, we just want sales. So being the consummate go-to-market guy, I said, what happens if I could do this? And basically we take digital marketing and digital sales and we create a predictable revenue stream. And if we do well, we share on the upside. So that's FunnelKake.
Okay, great. Dan?
Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming. I've known a lot of you guys over the years. It's good to see some familiar faces and some fresh ones. I'd like you to imagine a baby, and I would like you to imagine a baby behind the desk of an automotive service repair shop. That basically started my journey with the local business. That was my dad's repair shop in Watertown, Massachusetts, called Beaconwood Motors. And he would actually bring me in, and I would get to like pull on like the automotive lift and like bring the cars up in the air. And when I was very, very little, I learned very early on how challenging it is for local business to succeed. If you sort of fast forward 20 odd years later, I joined Google in 2005. And since then, I've been working in the local search space with many of you folks on how do we make it easier for customers to find local businesses. And that was really sort of the birth of Reserve with Google, where we were thinking about what is the simplest, most important way to help the small business succeed. And we did a lot of interviews in the local space, and we spoke with a lot of hairdressers and a lot of fitness trainers and a lot of different industries, and we asked them, what is the most important thing to you? What is the simplest, most important thing to you? Because when we were contemplating this project, we had the idea of a lot of different tools and services that we could make somewhat arcane or somewhat very simple. And they said, we just want butts in seats. We want customers to come in. We want to be found really, really easily online. And so when we basically decided to work on this project, we thought that a partnering strategy was really the best way to do that. As of today, we have over 25 partners that are live on Reserve with Google around the globe, and many, many more coming soon, and also meeting lots of great folks here today. So happy to go into more detail as we go on.
Before we move on, can you just explain to everyone where your team is oriented inside of Google? It's not part of the channel team. Can you buy these Reserve products from somewhere else? Are you going direct? Just to kind of clear up some of the confusion around that.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to clarify. Google is a lot of folks. So the team that I work on is called the Product Partnerships team. And specifically, our charter is to really help our product managers sort of design and strategize and then ultimately build their products into reality. The vast majority of that is through partnerships. So from things like classic data licensing to things like Bluetooth beacons and a lot of other projects, an area that I've personally worked on and my other colleagues who are here have also worked on as well. So we basically are sort of the business arm of our product organization as it relates to geo and maps and assistant and other sort of other parts of the company as well.
Hi, I'm Neil Crist, VP of Product at Moz, tiny little company in Seattle. While I'm new to the Moz leadership team, I'm actually not new to local. In 2008, I started a local analytics company and later sold it to Groupon in 2015. About 2 years into spending time at Groupon, I had coffee with Sarah Bird, CEO of Moz, and decided to join the Moz team. So here I am about 6 months later. Very excited to be with Moz, doing some very interesting things. And many of you may know this, but Moz has sort of two core products in the marketplace. One is Moz Local, which we probably talk about a lot here today. And then the core sort of SEO product, Moz Pro. Have about probably over 36,000 paying customers. So maybe not as small as I might have said earlier, but very excited to be part of this chapter of Moz.
So, you had a marketing automation company, which is all the rage now, with 10,000 customers on it. You sold the company to Groupon. Lots of speculation about why Groupon didn't do as well as people thought it would do after it kind of went public. And one of the speculations that people had talked about often was they sent a lot of customers through the door, but no one could figure out how to retain the customers, and these were people that were not going to come back. So one of the theses that I've heard over the last couple of years was, if they had a marketing automation platform that allowed them to capture customers when they came back in, and then remarket to these customers to get them back in and help these businesses build lists, that would have made all the difference, because it wouldn't have been so much of these people coming in and buying at a discount. Do you agree with that? And if you do or you don't, like, why do you think that it turned out the way that it did?
Yeah, I think yes and no, which is a great answer, right? I don't have to.
It is anytime you can answer yes and no to a question.
So I would
Classic
say,
Neil.
Yeah, exactly. So, from my perspective, I think, Groupon went through a period where they were doing a tremendous number of acquisitions, both on the POS side. They did a little bit into the beacon space.
Can you guys hear okay out there? No?
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 Am I
Okay.
not talking into
There
the
you
mic?
go.
Here we go.
Just checking.
So Groupon has acquired a number of companies, including my company, Venue Labs, at the time. And we actually were in a space of location analytics. So they actually ended up using our technology internally to fuel a lot of their sales and sort of lead scoring mechanisms that they had inside the sales team. But more broadly, Groupon was making investments in beacons, making investments in POS platforms, and really I think they were all over the place in terms of trying to bring together technologies that would sort of help them tackle loyalty, tackle remarketing, and they just haven't quite found the right combination yet when it comes to those pieces yet. They do have some running room to figure it out, but yeah.
What do you think? You have a marketing automation company. Do you think that would have helped, or do you think they just couldn't put them all together?
It's funny you bring that up, because the Groupon model is something we watch really, really closely when they came out. And I think what Groupon got really right is they did attribution to perfection. Because think about it, you didn't spend any money. If somebody came in, you got cash. And this was during the recession, so a lot of people were really strapped for cash. And at that time, if they just had cash flow going, it was a good thing. Where I think they failed, and I'm not saying marketing automation, I don't think there's any answer, is that the businesses took advantage of something that was unique to them, but similar. It was a one-time hit, and they were hoping to get customers back in. But unfortunately, they kept that process going. And I don't have an answer for you. I talked to your corporate dev guy a couple times. I forgot his name. And it's definitely not marketing automation. It's going to have to be a mindset. So I give them a lot of credit. I mean, God, they were one of the fastest growing, I think, companies in history, period. But they just never finished that second part of it. And I wish I had an answer, because they're still figuring it out. But
So he's saying it's your fault, Neil. He's saying it's your fault it didn't work.
I take full responsibility.
yes and no.
So Google Reserve, you guys could, or sorry, Reserve with Google. It's not the year of the Scotch year. It's actually the product. You guys could solve the traffic problem, and you can solve the attribution problem. Is this one of the reasons that you've been successful signing up partners, or is it one of those conversations in 2018 where people are like, "Oh, we did this with paid search, and we're worried that you're going to take all of our customers, so we're not really going to work with you unless we have to"?
Yep. So what's interesting and news to some folks and not news to other folks is, fewer than 10% of businesses that offer some sort of scheduling service actually offer that scheduling service online. So, some of the themes of this conference is a lot of times we think that local is solved in the developed markets and it's unsolved in the emerging markets, which is true, but that's also true in terms of just like online transactions of like the fundamental service that the businesses offer. So, my team and I, we've spoken with over 200 appointment schedulers around the globe, and we've seen 5 to 6 different core business models just for online scheduling, which is like one of the sort of simplest things you can offer online, right? POS is obviously a lot more sophisticated. Attribution is orders of magnitude more sophisticated than that. And so even just in this fundamental thing of just booking a service online, whether it's a haircut or a gym class or a restaurant reservation or a massage, they get more creative in the dancing space, things like that. Even it's still this fundamental thing of getting these businesses online.
But why is that though? Why only 10% in 2018? You figure people be walking around now saying most people have a mobile phone, most people can use the internet, most people can use a computer. Like, why do we not have higher penetration than 10%?
Yeah, that's a great question. So
it is a great question. That's why I'm the moderator.
Exactly. So
Just kidding.
one of the earlier speakers was saying that local businesses are super busy, super overloaded, and they just don't have the time to really sort of do things correctly. And that's a lot of time why they come to companies like you guys here to help them get online with their fundamentals and just get even just operating hours, right? If you look at 1,000 businesses around the globe, more than half of them just have the wrong operating hours online. So even just the fundamentals are still aren't there. And when you tell them, you can double or triple your business by using an online appointment scheduling solution. And by the way, just some of the names of the companies that we work with are folks like Mindbody, Schedulicity, Salon Runner, GoPanache, Salon Ultimate. There's a lot of these names, mostly in the B2B space, that unless you focus on those industries, you wouldn't recognize them. Even then, a lot of local businesses, they just still aren't willing to do the upfront investment of automating their business, transitioning from a paper-based calendar in a book under a shelf into an online solution, and then that's how you sort of bridge it online. And one more piece of the story, you also have this discoverability problem, which is another theme that others in the room have spoken about earlier, which is even if you're on one of these scheduling platforms, you may or may not have the Salon Runner app installed. And even Mindbody, which is really one of the leaders in the space, they don't always have 100% penetration of all of the customers of Mindbody frequenters. So this is sort of where Google can help with the discoverability is if Dan's House of Yoga is using Schedulicity, we do a partnership with Schedulicity. We can then add a book button on their place page, and then users, if they're interested, can go ahead and book through using Schedulicity's platform or the myriad of other companies that we work with.
So I used to work at, let me just follow up on this real quick and then we'll go back to you. So I used to work at an interactive corp company a while back, and we ran this big study where we did call tracking. We're like, isn't this great? We're going to get people call tracking and figure out whether or not our ad campaigns are performing. Great idea. And kind of the big aha, this was back in, 2000, was that businesses do not answer the phone. Mm-hmm. So like more than half of the calls go unanswered during business hours. So like this idea of creating a lead funnel that works, that has good economics, it makes perfect sense. Like, oh yeah, I should be able to figure out my cost per lead. But in the end, it all doesn't work because they're not picking up the phone anyway. Because, like your dad, he's fixing the car and he's talking to a client.
That's right.
He's not in the front office doing it. And that's where, if you really want to get more business, have someone answer your phone. Like that's number one. What do you think about that? You feel free to jump in too.
So I want to address both of those. It's one of the reasons we created FunnelKake, and I'm not here to sell that. The big thing that I think is the most important thing, going back to the graduate, was plastics, right, is transition. And what we've found, and I know that situation all too well, because before I came out, I was getting my hair cut. I had to wait 45 minutes for my barber.
Because you didn't make an appointment online.
She will not do, even though I've known her for 15 years, and she's not an old woman, she will not make that transition. Now, she knows I would come in there and help her set up because I do not want to wait 45 minutes. I will not, but I did. And so the biggest challenge we have, I think, in the industry is Groupon couldn't transition the customer over from coupons into retention. No matter how smart Google is, and God knows they have some of the smartest people, until you have a team that transitions somebody from an old way to doing things, which they're scared crapless to make a change. And unless you can give them that trusted transition, and that's what we're doing. We literally, all this stuff doesn't mean anything. We just say, we got it. And even when they fall down, we pick them up. When there's a problem, we got it. And if anything, that's it. That's our secret sauce, if you will. And yeah, there's some other stuff, but it's that transition from my marketing automation platform to a point solution never happened, and all this stuff. So the transition is the biggest thing that's the problem, in my opinion.
What do you guys think about that? Is that true?
I mean, I'm not sure that I have enough data to be able to talk about the friction of adoption in the SMB, which I think is what you're getting at. I will say, from a search perspective, in local search, we think a lot about, discoverability, like we talked about, but then also, once discovered, what happens, right? And so, Moz actually is working on right now a very extensive local SERP study, and in doing so, what we've learned is sort of quite a few things. One is the prevalence of local pack ads is pretty extensive, and then once that ad is interacting with the person conducting the search, it doesn't take them to a website, it takes them to another Google property representing that business. If they stay on that Google property, they then have the ability to then go the next step, which is reserve or call or click to drive. So I think it's those kind of studies, I think, and as we start to talk about those more openly, I think it's going to paint a picture of, hey, this is where you need to be to a small business.
I can add one or two more thoughts as well. There's so many different ways where you can look at the world. You can segment it by size, or if we look at it by industry, I think like in the restaurant reservation space, it's very, very clear to restaurants the benefits of using an online reservation platform. That is one of the more mature online scheduling verticals. Things like beauty are sort of a little bit behind that, a little bit more nascent, where you're saying, hey, do you know you can book a haircut online? People are thinking, oh yeah, I guess I could, but it's not quite as obvious as like making a reservation for Valentine's Day, which is rapidly coming up. And so when we talk with our scheduling partners and we say, what is your biggest challenge for tripling the number of merchants that are on your platform? They say a lot of times when we're cold calling in and trying to get the owner to answer the phone, they say, yeah, even if I'm using your scheduling platform, how will people find it? And now that we're working with them directly, they can say, yeah, now you have a book button across all these different Google properties. So we're actually really trying to help that flywheel going of saying, hey, if you're a local business and you use one of our scheduling partners, it's just going to make it that much easier to make your services available online.
So that I believe, and I believe the restaurant example. So I was talking to, there's a neighborhood restaurant near us that we're friendly with the owner. And he used to do reservations over the phone. And then one day he just stopped and said, hey, Paul, why is that you did that? And he said, well, people would leave messages, they'd call all the time. They'd say, well, I can come in at 8:45, but not 8:30. He's like, nope, no more. It's like, here's the times that are available. We push everyone online. He said it basically saved him a person and a half, right? Because there was just so much time calling people back and negotiating this concept of like when the reservation was going to happen. So that use case makes sense to me. Where it falls down for me, my wife is a small business owner. She's a doctor, a clinical neuropsychologist, so I get free therapy at home. But she's seeing patients most of the day, right? And like she's always with a patient. She's always seeing someone. She's one is guilty of not answering the phone, so someone else does it for her. But she's never going to use an online scheduling platform because there's a whole litany of things you have to go to get through the process, like are you a patient already, and what is your insurance company, like just tons and tons of kind of infrastructural support that won't enable her to take this online. So I guess my question is this going to be relegated to a handful of categories like the ones that you're already going after, or do you think we're going to see something a little bit wider than that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're Google, we like to experiment and try and find things that work out. So we're typically building in a sort of good, better, best way. So from an online booking and scheduling perspective, fitness classes specifically are one of the sort of simplest things that you can start with. So that's why we started with fitness, is you have the name of the class, the time of the class, maybe you pick the instructor, and that's it. Beauty is a little bit more sophisticated in terms of the booking flow. Sometimes they want a 10% deposit on a $300 haircut, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this is built off of, our API is public. It's called the Maps Booking API, which is really designed to be a generic interface for our scheduling companies to write into us. So, today we have these sort of, 3 to 4 focused verticals, and over time we're looking at other industries. And to tie an amazing bow on all of this, auto repair is an industry that we're looking at for online scheduling, and so I'm calling into some of these automotive repair software companies, and I say literally grew up in your industry. So that's one that we're looking at, auto repair, and there's other ones as well. So this is certainly by no means limited to any specific industry.
Don't you think that requires a certain level of sophistication with the person booking? Like, I need to go see an auto mechanic. It's one thing for, like, I guess an oil change, but like, hey, my car's making this weird clunking noise.
Yeah. So short answer, yes. Automotive is extremely complicated, right? If you ask the owner of a Nissan, do you have a regular step transmission or a continuously variable transmission, even if they own the new Maxima, they're not going to know that. So in automotive, the burden on the user or the customer, depending on how you look at it, is extremely high, and that's one reason why with automotive, it's more of a book an appointment with your service advisor than asking the user to like sort of self-diagnose their vehicle. So that's one of these things where when we're thinking about new industries, how complicated do we want to match the pre-existing booking flow, or do we want to sort of try to simplify it? And there's pros and cons to both of those things. And if we think about the world moving towards voice and these simpler interactions, right? If you have some form of assistant or a smart device or a smartwatch or a smart speaker, the future of just being able to say, I want to book a haircut this weekend, and within 1 or 2 more steps, it just magically works. That's really sort of where we're shooting for with this.
Okay, so 5 years from now, pretend we're all back here. It's like a reunion show. What is the conversation around this whole lead conversion? Is it the same thing? Are we still talking about the same stuff? Hey, the listings are broken, you can't be found, people aren't going to reserve in these categories, or is there some kind of breakthrough, some structural breakthrough that happens which changes the conversation radically?
Yeah, I want to take that one first. The big challenge that we have as an industry is the transition that I keep talking about is about we're changing business models. The reason that Home Advisor is doing so well and taking a large chunk of this top line revenue is because the tools that were provided to the people did not help them change their business model. The consumers are ready. If there's not a person out there who's not ready for their phone to make life easier, I know they are. But these small businesses, not the big guys, but the small businesses aren't ready. And we can give them all the tools, we can tell them all the cool stuff, we can make it free, freemium. The issue is going to be, can we teach them the new model? Because that's the thing we realized, especially in this last 10 years, that it's not that these people don't get it. It's not that these people aren't willing to be educated or they don't want it. The biggest problem is we're asking them to change their whole way of doing business. And so if you said to your father, Dad, what do you want to do? I just want to fix cars. If we can give him a model that lets him just fix cars, he'll take it. But if we're asking him to say, well, you need to do this and this and this and this and this, they're going to hold back as long as possible. So you see, we talk about the millennials. The millennials are used to this. So when they open businesses, baking industry, we had a long, big partnership with, the millennials were going to social media and selling cupcakes and all these $10 cupcakes through social. But they came back to the reality that said that's not the only way. They need to do brick and mortar. And we saw this whole transition. But they understood it because they were used to it. The big thing is, can we help them get to this new model, whatever it may be? Each industry is going to have to go through a big transition.
What do you think, Neil?
Well, I kind of come at it from 2 perspectives. One is, from, let's say 3 years from now, 5 years from now, there are folks in the local space and certainly in local search that, are talking about this trend where the opportunity to, because of monetization of the local search, SERP, that the opportunity to really do anything other than pay for ads will continue to sort of decline, meaning organic opportunity for small business will drop. I'm not quite that pessimistic about it. I think on the other side of the coin,
So who is saying that? I don't agree with that, but
there's been blog posts about it from certain folks in the industry. Like I think some might be here. There you are, David. David Mims out there.
No way, David.
So David Mim, Mike Blumenthal. That's a perspective that actually there's a lot to it, right? But I also think on the other side, and granted, the other side of the coin is as that opportunity narrows, I think it becomes more and more important that that local businesses are taking the opportunities that do exist. So, search features, give businesses different ways to show up within search. So if they're going to end up staying on the Google property, make sure that your digital assets, your location data is correct so that you can take that opportunity to connect with that person
So,
searching.
well, let me ask David a question since he brought this up, and because I disagree with this. So, I get more notifications on my mobile phone for local businesses around me. If I go to somewhere new, the Yelp app tells me something's new. I get stuff from Facebook. I'm constantly getting notifications about all kinds of stuff. It's only Google. Okay, got it. Okay, all right, that's fair. I think Google's a fad. Okay, well, I think that I definitely agree with. I think there's tons of opportunities for things to kind of surface up.
I shouldn't be talking for David.
Yeah, it was good. No, that was actually that was interesting. All right, so we only have like 30 more seconds. Final thoughts. What do you think?
Jeez. The biggest thing I could tell people and I wanted to talk about tonight was we're still focusing on the buy now. And if
So final thoughts, like think about this. What would help people in this room do their job better tomorrow or get more partners tomorrow?
Yeah. So if we're all thinking about buy now, you're going to lose 90% of your time and money. So you got to be thinking of buy now, buy later, research, and learn more, and I'm curious. And when you do that, we see a 20 to 30% increase, like that. You know, it's taking the funnel that looks like a sieve and patching the holes.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, I would just say be very mindful of like what your strengths are, and then partner with other companies that can implement that. I'm really impressed by some of the startups saying how they're partnering with other folks to accelerate their sort of time to market. And I really like when people say, this is what we do, we're the best at it, and it's a specific thing. I do not like the phrase we're a one-stop shop because that's rarely true. I don't really know any company in history that's a one-stop shop. So just really focus on what you do well at and then supplement it in ways that make sense for you.
Final thoughts, Neil?
I think one thing you can expect from me as part of the mods team is we're going to continue to try and drive data-driven insights when it comes to local search and how to get discovered. And you know, that's an important piece, and I would say as long as, you know, continue to look for perspectives that are supported by data when making those decisions.
Cool. All right, please join me in thanking the panel for coming up here. Thank you. Thank you, guys.